Okay guys, so I think we're ready to start. So thanks for joining me again. I've just put some base colors on the ogre before starting filming, so that sort of saves a bit of time getting those base coats down. Probably need to put another one on the red there, on the pants and that kind of thing. Just want to make it sort of pretty vivid and bright. So just putting in some flat red being my favorite red paint. So thanks again for all the comments and all that overnight. I checked this morning, and I'm glad you enjoyed the video on the troll, and I really enjoyed it too. And I did do a little bit of work to him before, just to block in all the scales and that kind of thing, so we're ready for the next time. Probably tomorrow I'll switch out the ogre for the troll tomorrow and make some more progress on that. And I just touched up the skin a little bit more. Maybe you can tell, just added a few more highlights and shading here and there, and added some stubble to his chin. You can just do that by adding a bit of grey. So just take some grey, like a mid grey, medium grey, and then put that into your flesh colour. Even you put like any of these. I like that rose brown colour. You just mix it in with that, and that gives you sort of your stubble colour. Then you can add it to the stubble here. Okay, so that's how you do that. And I've just put some black brown here on the part of his staff. Okay, so that's all I've done really. Just gonna put some brown on that belt. There's nothing on this side, okay. And yeah, it's going to do this little bracelet of his in sort of a goldy brown colour as well. Just need a dark grey, which is that, where is it? Dark sea green grey. Add that to the base of that staff or gun loading thingamajig, whatever he's carrying. Rightio. Okay, so now let's crack on with the chainmail, and I'm just going to grab an older brush, very dirty old brush that I use for my bases and that kind of thing. So I'm just going to mix the base color in with this. It's a natural grey, natural steel. What's it called? Natural grey, which is kind of like a mid-tone grey, yeah? I'm just going to wipe the excess paint off in a bit of tissue here. And just go straight over the top of that chainmail, just brushing down to pick out all the links on his chainmail. Very fine chainmail actually, isn't it? Must have cost him a fortune to get that sort of chainmail on him at that size. Wouldn't be cheap. I suppose this part here is going to be his pants, his colour of his pants, so I'm just going to remember to add that in later. In other news today, I was very lucky that a guy on the Australian trading site had a Felix. Felix being, Gotrek's mate in the stories, in the books, in the fluff, and all that kind of thing. So I had a Gotrek here and didn't have the Felix. So I was really lucky that I could find someone who sold it, who was selling one, and I luckily grabbed it in time before someone else grabbed it. So very happy with that. So I paid the money, and he'll get it sent to my Australian address, and then I'll get it sent over at some other point in the future. But yeah, just really happy to have acquired him now. So I've got the pair, and yeah, I'm looking forward to painting the pair of them now. I do have Felix here. I do have Gotrek here. Sorry, he is here. Put in a makeshift base for him. Oh, here. So if I have time tonight, otherwise in another paint session, we'll start going on with his flesh and get that underway, because he's been sitting there for a while. Just adding some lighter grey into that mix there, and repeat that process by just going over the chainmail. And I do have some questions from people today, so I have to answer those. Just trying to think what the hell they were now. Sorry about that, I forgot about them. Someone asked me a question, I said, oh yeah, I'll answer that in the show tonight. And of course, it's just escaped me now what the actual question or questions were. It's typical. I'll try to remember through the video anyway. But I got in contact with Dan Buman, and looks like we're going to go ahead with some recording for the next podcast in an interview with him and about his Bretonians. So that'll be quite cool. So I just lined up a time that's suitable for him. So it should be tomorrow night. Well, tomorrow morning, isn't it? Tomorrow morning, but 12:30 in the morning. We'll get that recording done, so it's ready for early Sunday morning or late Saturday night, so I can post it up. Me and Justin's just got to record our part as well, and that's done. So looking forward to that as well, getting the second podcast out. Looking at the various different hosting sites, because it took such a long time before the majority of them accepted it after review. But iTunes just have never accepted it, so I just personally made my account or signed in under their it's some kind of special submission site where you need to if you want to do it yourself and you don't want to do it through the hosting site that's what they normally do. They just do it for you, but for some reason it just never got accepted. So I did that manually myself. So hopefully it'll be on iTunes at some point. It usually takes about 4 to 5 days or 5 business days for it to go through. So I'll let you know if there's any updates on that. I think the question was, and I can't remember who asked me, sorry about that, but maybe just like about gaming memories or that kind of thing. But what I might do actually, because I thought about it today, as we didn't really get into it, and I don't think I've actually really talked about it before, so remind me if I have, but I'm just going to add some white into that mix too now. The origin stories, I don't think I think in the podcast we kind of skimmed over it, and I talked to Justin later about that, and maybe we should go over it again, because the way it happened was we recorded it once, and I did it on Zoom, right? So it was in video, and then I recorded it. We did like an hour or something like that, and we just talked about basically just our origin stories, basically. Then I had trouble trying to convert that into an audio file, getting onto my iMovie app, because I had plans of doing it sort of like an audio plus pictures at the same time, and it sort of didn't work out. So I said, look, Justin, we need to do it again. But this time it's going to be just audio, and I was looking for different kinds of apps to do podcasts with, and my sister recommended the one I'm using now, which is Anchor, which is really good, really intuitive, easy to use, really simple, and it's perfect for me because I'm, like some people, the most untech person known to this world, so I need something that's really simple and easy to do. So I did that. And on that recording, I think we sort of skimmed over our origin story. So I thought I might do that and start by doing that, and then in that probably be some memorable games and that kind of thing. And so going all the way back, and I think I touched on this with Justin in the podcast, is that the first sort of concept I have of fantasy was through the Hobbit novels that my grandmother had. That was actually from my auntie. I think she gave it to my grandma or something like that, and left it at her house. Left the books at her house, and I was like looking at the cover. I think, wow, that looks really cool. I had no idea what fantasy, like I suppose I would have seen it on cartoons or something like that, but I never knew there was some kind of books or anything about it, about dragons and dwarves and elves and that kind of thing. So that's my earliest memory. But I'm sure there would have been like cartoons like He-Man, Master of the Universe, or other kind of cartoons of that, inspired by Tolkien type fantasy. So maybe it wasn't my very first thing, but that's the one I can remember the most. I'm just going to do the sword now in the same way. And then after really enjoying that book, and I think it was about, 15, 16 or something, I think then. Then the ads for HeroQuest started coming up on TV, the commercials for them. And they're really funny. Like if you look at them now, they're just hilarious. You can find them on YouTube if you look up HeroQuest commercial or something or whatever. Absolutely hilarious stuff. That's where that broadsword comes from. That's that. If you see anything about HeroQuest and they say, oh, it's the broadsword. That's where it comes from the accent from that British kid on there. It's quite cool. It's funny. But that was sort of my sort of intro into the hobby, especially into miniature painting, because looking at all those beautifully painted miniatures that Mike McVeigh did on the outside of the box, and inside there was like a little booklet, maybe the quest book, and on the back of that had like painted samples of the gargoyle and I think it's a Fimir and the barbarian and that kind of thing. Just really amazing stuff. And of course I sent away, like many people did at that time, for the booklet, for the painting guide. So, which I think we had to pay money for, because I think my dad said it would cost a lot of money to send it to them or something like that. It was like a return, paid envelope I think you had to send to them then at those days. So sent away. It took a long time before it got back, and I got it back and never regretted it, because inside that painting guide was all these, step-by-steps of how to paint your miniatures and that kind of thing. And of course it came with the Games Workshop catalogue with all these amazing photographs of beautifully laid out tables and terrain and hundreds of miniatures. And it was Warhammer Fantasy, I think was the very first game they previewed in that catalogue, and that really caught my attention, because thinking of Lord of the Rings and these mass battles and The Hobbit, it immediately fueled my imagination, and I thought, this is something I could really get into. And of course I liked all the other games too, like 40k and Space Marine Epic. They looked very interesting to me, but I think fantasy was like the main one that really got my imagination running. So yeah, lots of trial and errors with the painting and all that kind of thing, and lots of miniatures that were destroyed and attempted to strip back and that kind of thing, and melted them. And I think we've all been there. And I sadly don't have any of those miniatures now. Actually, I found a photo of a miniature that I gave to my mum. That was one of the very first dwarves I painted in a set of 4 Marauder miniatures. They were like the first metal minis I bought. So I'll have to maybe at the end of this video I'll show that photograph of the. It's the oldest mini I have of, you know, something I painted when I was. I'm thinking about 17, 18. It's the only one that's survived. Where everything else went, I have absolutely no idea. No idea. I don't know what happened. I honestly say that I really don't know what ever happened to all my old stuff. I can't imagine it went in the bin. I know my Epic supplements went in the bin, which I'm crying about now because I love Epic. Anybody who doesn't know, like, Epic's like that's definitely in my, you know, my memory bank as being the most memorable, the most fun I've ever had playing a game was with Epic Space Marine, and I'm talking about 2nd edition, not the 40k versions or Armageddon or whatever they were. But like, this is like. This is the edition where they had all the special supplements of all the different armies. You know, like, well, we never had the Warlord supplements. Only now recently that I got that. But I think we had all the other ones except for Tyranners. We didn't have Tyranners, and I think they came out last anyway. But yeah, and that reminded me too. When I was thinking about that, I should ask Chris, my long-time buddy, if he wanted to come on the podcast at all and talk. We can talk about Epic, and maybe he can remind me about a lot of stuff that we did that I've now forgotten about. But he was like the diehard Eldar player. I was the diehard Blood Angel Space Marine and Chaos player, and we would just play on the carpet in his house. We'd go there usually every weekend, play once a week. And while his wife and son were sleeping, and we'd just play on the carpet. And sometimes down at the games club too. Yeah, really good memories of that game. And yeah, fortunately I have bought back all the rules and most of the supplements anyway, not all of them, but most of them, the ones that I really wanted. Got all those back now, and had a couple of games already with a guy here in Tokyo, and just loved it. You know, it's still the great game it was back in the day. That's never changed. So yeah, and definitely will play a lot more of that in the future. If you've never tried Epic Space Marine, but you're playing like more recent versions of the game, I'd honestly give it a go. If someone says, "Oh, you should play Net Epic," and because Net Epic is also a thing that came out of 2nd edition Epic, because when they made that transition to Epic 40k, a lot of people weren't happy with the rules and where it went, so they just made their own homebrew version of the rules with the collaboration of, you know, thousands of members on this website. I totally missed all of that. I was totally out of Games Workshop and all the games and all that kind of stuff by that point. I certainly did not have the internet in those days, so I had no idea about it until not that long ago, only a couple of years ago. But not tried those rules. I'm just quite happy just and playing the old rules how they were. I just don't see there's anything wrong with them. People could probably argue until the sun comes down about that, but yeah, I think if you enjoyed a game system, you know, no matter how broken it might have been or how much it seemed in the day, I don't think it's really, you know, they go about points, costs, and that kind of stuff. I'm just not really into it. I think you can play to enjoy it, and if there's an element of a game that you don't particularly like, you can always take it out or modify it somehow. I'm just not into, you know, printing off reams and reams of black and white photocopies of, you know, of rules. It just doesn't really appeal to me. Even though, ironically, that the original rule books were in black and white. But I'm sure, you know, the NetEpic rules are really great rules. I know a lot of people, you know, champion them and say they're absolutely brilliant, and they would never go back. And that's cool. That's great. You know, maybe I will try it one day. Anyhow, getting back to that, first introduction was Hero Quest, then loved playing that. I have a lot of fond memories of playing that on summer holidays with a few friends at a friend's place, and we play through all the expansions, well, the Keller's Keep, and the other one, what was the other one? It was to do with the sorcerer, and the name of the expansion escapes me, but yeah, I can't remember it. But anyhow, I know Keller's Keep had the dwarf on the front, and it was attacking this big stone golem. And the other one was the Witch's Lair or something, I think it was called. But let me know in the comments if I got that wrong. But another great, fantastic game. One of my all-time favourite games, and luckily only recently, about 12 months ago, I managed to buy a copy back again from a guy just living locally. So amazing, he just posted up for sale, and out of the blue, and I said, yep, I'll take that, thank you very much. I really want to revisit and repaint all those old miniatures, which I have painted the characters for, because I'm just going off topic here, off track, but I took it to school with me with the high school kids, and we played it in our classroom, because I just didn't see how we were going to play it any other way. Like, getting guys together to play it was just really hard. So I thought, oh well, we've got these kids, and they seemed pretty keen, and they really loved it. And the surprising thing about that was, like, there's 3 of them who were girls, and was it 3 girls and 2 boys? And one of the girls, I got her to be the GM, and she loved that. She loved doing it. You know, and it was really funny. It's quite a funny thing to see if you're sort of looking back on it. You know, I'm much older now, and you know, of course, I had a lot more experience playing games. But these kids had never seen anything like this kind of thing before. You know, this is totally new for them. So it's like, you know, sort of thinking back to when I first saw a game like this, and how we sort of felt about it. I think they had that as well. Not that they wanted to, you know, buy the game, because obviously you can't buy it anyway, but I think they were, quite interested in it, and they enjoyed it. And just seeing how people react to certain things, or how they play, their play styles and that kind of thing. Had like the barbarian who was always chicking, you know, always not wanting to get into fights and chicking out always at the last minute, and you know, me having a go at him saying, what are you doing? You know, you're the strongest one, you should be in there getting into the fights and protecting the weaker members of your party. And it was so funny, it was so hilarious. And the GM, the girl, you know, not wanting to kill her friends and that kind of thing with all the monsters. We had a great time doing that. And hopefully we can have some more of those sort of game sessions in the future with the kids. I think that's great. And hopefully, you know, one day with my son and his friends, you know, they can take it and play it themselves. I think that'd be cool. And maybe I can GM for them or something like that one day. Just doing all these brown bits. And the skulls and that kind of thing are all the same colour, really. And that little ring there, here. And after Hero Quest, after we sort of finished with that and people went their separate ways and all that kind of thing after high school. And did I have the, yeah, the 3rd edition Warhammer Fantasy rulebook was the first one I had. That was like the first official Games Workshop product I bought. And loved looking through the rule, like the pictures and all these awesome miniatures and the dwarves I really fell in love with straight away. But you know, my city in Australia, you know, was a touristic city. You know, it wasn't really a gaming city. It wasn't didn't have any. Well, I had one comic shop where I found this book in that did stock a number of Games Workshop products, and usually the box sets and a handful of blisters on a rack. And that's where I first bought the book initially, and then later when I saved up some money, I bought the that Marauder Dwarf Thunderers pack and an Ogre, Marauder Ogre, which are really fantastic. They're really awesome models. They're just so incredibly hard to find these days. I just can't find them anywhere. You know, for sale, like as something for sale. I would love those ogres to get those ogres again, like a multi-part kit. I think they had like separate arms, separate legs, and I think their head was separate or something like that. Yeah, it was like a multi-part kit. But you don't really see them. I don't know why. Maybe they weren't so popular. I'm not sure. They were really beautiful models. Actually, they look very similar to this kind of aesthetic. You know, like big-chinned. Yeah, so that's my earliest memory of buying the miniatures, the first miniatures I had. So they're the first lead miniatures, or metal miniatures, or made of lead I suppose, but first metal miniatures. And I don't know how, I must have bought some spray paint and sprayed them, I'm guessing. I'm not sure. I think I would have just seen it from the painting guide how to do it. Yeah, they were really good days though. But yeah, and then that store was linked to another larger store in Brisbane. Brisbane's like the capital city of Queensland, so we would make road trips up there with a few guys, and we would go and hunt down these shops that carried them. So that was the main one, and they had another store. There's a couple other stores sort of in the city, and we would go there and you know, go and try to get some miniatures here and there and just have a look. And eventually they carried quite a lot. I think they got most of it out of the US because it's all in that white metal. And of course, you know, Warhammer as a hobby, it's really expensive, especially back then. And you know, it was me, you know, I didn't have a lot of money to buy an army with, that's for sure, just the odd miniature here and there. And I bought the Regiments of Renown, like it's a box set of all the plastic miniatures. I think I talked about that last time, but yeah, bought that. So they're like my first sort of regiment box set of miniatures, and I think they came with 10. It's quite a cool set actually. It came with 10 different, so 10 models with 2 different head variants of all the races, or the main races. I don't think, it didn't come with any Chaos Warriors, but this came with like Skaven, Goblins, Orcs, Dark Elves, Wood Elves, and I think that was all. And yeah, it's a great little starter. So if you've got like, you know, 2 or 3 of those box sets, you could have 30-man units of all different kinds, and you could swap them with your friends and get more models that way. So it was quite a cool idea. And yeah, we tried being the optimum word of playing Warhammer Fantasy. It's a pretty deeply complex book really when you look at it, because it's got like everything crammed in one book. And yeah, I think the concept of a war game wasn't really I didn't really understand it. So I can see, visually how all the figures would line up in a rank and in a unit, and then you would move these around and maneuver them. But I think at that time I was just interested in the painting of the models and that kind of thing more than the game. And I'd hang around much smarter guys than me at school, and they would try to work out the rules for themselves. And I just remember only playing one battle on the floor in my house with a few guys that I knew from school, and Chris came too, and we just played that on the floor. And I don't think it was really a game as such. I just remember that one of the guys had some kind of magus or sorcerer, and he summoned a demon. And because the other side didn't have any magic items, they couldn't kill the demon. So basically it was completely invulnerable to any attacks. That's the only thing I remember, and I think the game ended soon after that, and then that was the last time I ever played it. So I would like to revisit 3rd edition at one point, if possible. I know there's some guys I know now that do play it, and there's some guys here in Tokyo that are really into Old Hammer, and given the opportunity, we could get together and have a game of that at some point. But then it really sort of started with 4th edition and buying the 4th edition box set that came out shortly after I bought that rulebook. So it was sort of the end phase of 3rd edition, or phasing out. The company was changing clearly, and their direction was more focused on these, very bright and colourful artworks, and trying to capture the younger market. After HeroQuest and Space Crusade, these games that Milton Bradley, later produced in collaboration with Games Workshop, I think it became such a huge success for GW that they wanted to hold on to that generation, and then feed them with their main core game systems. So being Warhammer and Warhammer 40k, and then you got a whole generation like myself, and maybe you guys too, that started that way, and we just never looked back. So that's really my origin story, is how I got into the hobby. And my first ever army was High Elves, because it came with a set. The Goblins I gave to a guy at school that I knew, and he never did anything with them. We never had a game, and obviously they're in the bin right now. Or he might still have them. I don't know. I've just never kept in touch with him, and I can only presume that he got rid of them. That's fair enough. Which reminds me, I need to get more of those guys at some point. I think my mate Steve in Scotland's going to help me out with that, because I need some of those spearmen, and I need more of those archers as goblin archers for various projects now. It's nice to have the monopose ones. I don't mind them. Of course, everyone wants all the lead models because it's got all that character and variation in the poses and that kind of thing. But the monopose ones still have that charm to them that all these other multi-part plastic models I just don't think they have. So just doing some work on the skulls there as well, just picking those out. So yeah, the reason for this podcast is to get people on to talk about their origin stories and about the projects they're working on and their favourite armies and all that kind of thing. As you would have guessed from the first episode, that's my main goal, because I love listening to those origin stories, and it sort of is part of that whole, nostalgia trip we're on, and it sort of brings us back to maybe similar experiences. We can all relate to those kind of experiences, I think. And it sort of invokes those memories also for different reasons. And I was on the Facebook group today, in the Hero Hammer group, and some guy said, about the orc rock lobber, that he first saw that in the Oxford store, in Games Workshop Oxford store. I said, oh yeah, I used to work there. That was the main store I worked at. But and I thought, I said, maybe you met me there, maybe when I was working there. But he'd sort of, I think he first went to the Games Workshop in '92 when that box set was released. That's a '92 edition, like the 4th edition set. So he probably was a person from the same generation as me through the Hero Quest. He got to know about Warhammer and Games Workshop and all that kind of thing, possibly. But yeah, I still got a lot of love for the old Hammer stuff. I was talking to a guy about it the other day, as he totally did tests for 4th edition, and he only likes 3rd edition, and that's fair enough. I know there's a big separation or division there between the different groups, and all that. I can understand where those guys are coming from, but I think, like I said, you just got to do and get into and hobby with what you really love and what you're really into. I'm just going to mix some yellow into that red, I think. Just try to do some highlights here in the pants. I'm not going to have time to do Gotrek today, so he'll be in another video. I'm just going to try to get most of these pants done, and then I'm going to finish them off before the next video, so that we can get on to the next stage and try to wrap them up pretty quickly. But the next video, I'm going to do the troll. I'm going to go back to the troll, which I will show you before the ending this video, so you can see where I'm at with it, and my progress with it. I think this might be a better way just to get through all the parts that are kind of just blocking in colors and all that kind of stuff. You don't really need to see all that. It's kind of like editing, but I'm not editing anything. It's still like I'm just doing it in the background, and we can see the more technical areas, maybe, all the more exciting parts, maybe. And Luke, if you're watching, Luke, thanks for your comments today, mate. I'm glad that the videos are helping you, and your savage orcs that you painted look really nice. Luke's on the Hero Hammer group, and he's painting up his orc army. So he asked me about the skin, what sort of recipe I had for the skin, and I told him like the one I use, really, the goblin green, and as like a medium, and the dark green as like a base, and then adding more yellow and beige or something in it, and coming up with some kind of equivalent colors for that. But he's got his own recipe that he's using, and it works fine. So there's so many different ways you can do green skins. There's not one real fixed way of doing it. Saw some Hero Quest miniatures painted today in all different kinds of hues of blues and browns, and I really like that too. You like a good variation. So yeah, just go wild and just experiment with it. I'm still experimenting with stuff, because I found that scale 75 paint that I like using. So I do like, but I do like using it, but it is kind of flat. Like it does give a really flat look to the skin. So that's one thing I probably don't like about it so much. So then I sort of went back gradually into the goblin green and yellow, and I'm sort of more comfortable with that look now, especially for this kind of project, the one I'm doing now with trying to keep it sort of authentic looking to the period. And but if I was just doing like a one-off kind of thing, yeah, I'd probably use that scale 75 because I really like that green color. And I think in reflection, looking at the question there by Kamen Rider, was that he was referring to the videos that I posted up of the pictures on like showcasing people's battles and that kind of thing. If I could talk more about my thoughts and that kind of thing, I think that's what he was referring to. So sorry about that, Kamen Rider. I sort of got confused about what was going on, and as I normally do, I either forget or get things mixed up. By the time I start recording, I should actually write them down. It might be a good idea. And get a bit more organised. He's got some kind of patch on his pants there. Just trying to work out the other one, if that's a patch or not. Not sure, but that one there is definitely a patch. And yeah, I'll get Justin to talk about his origin story as well, because he got in through the game system through Battle Masters, which is a real surprise to me, because I imagined him being a lot younger than I am, but maybe he's a lot younger than I am, and he got into that, at a much younger age, maybe when he was, in his really early teens or something like that. So that was cool to know. What am I going to do this patch colour in? Is it like a light blue, maybe? Yeah, so I'll get him to talk more about that, maybe in another episode, maybe the second episode, maybe. Okay, so he's going to have some stripes on his pants. So before we finish today, I'm just going to put some nice stripes there. He's got these seams in his pants. I'm going to do that as one of the stripes. Are just making a bit more bolder and broader. And then there's a bit too much water in there. Just going to get that excess water out. Don't want it to sort of run and spill everywhere. Just trying to make some nice even lines on his pants. As it is in the same colour scheme as the one I chose, but is it Karasburg? I think that's what it's called, the province where these guys are coming from. Okay, so that's generally how I'll do the stripes. Just start with marking a point and just marking it all the way across. keep the lines as even as possible. So if I'm recording tomorrow with Dan, then maybe I'll have to delay the painting video until the next morning, if I have time. Otherwise you may have to just miss out on one painting video, guys. Should be a tragedy for some, I'm sure, but I'm sure you'll get through it. Yeah, because we're going to record that in my time at about 12:30 in the morning. So, or if I'm awake after that, if I'm still awake, then I'll just do a quick video. After that, that's fine, no problem. I'm usually awake until, and Dan's the same. I think he doesn't sleep very long or very much, but yeah, I'm usually awake until about 2 in the morning. I usually do the video and wait till it uploads onto YouTube and then go to bed after that. Okay, so we've got another stripe here we need to put in as well. A little bit harder to get to. A bit messier, but you can probably just see that line. So just put like a faint line there, which you'll probably never see anyway. We'll sort of join to where the pants are. And I'll just go back and just make any corrections if I need to. If there's any sort of uneven lines on the black. And just with some beige. Just put in some highlights there, sort of line in spots here and there just to pick out some creases, and maybe just run along the lines of the black there just to make them stand out a little bit better. Oh yeah, and I asked my mum to find my my Games Workshop shirts that would be still at home somewhere to put in on my next parcel over. So luckily she found my GW Red Light Red shirt jumper and things like that. So I hope next time, yeah, the next parcel that arrives with all my miniatures in it, that'll be in there as well. So that'd be cool because I haven't seen those for years, and I was just thinking about it today. after talking to that guy on Facebook about working at Oxford store, and I thought, yeah, that's right, I've still got all my shirts and stuff there, so I could use that. I could use that in the studio. It's not like I'll walk around town and anything like that, so don't worry guys, I'm not losing my mind or anything like that, but yeah, it's cool just to, you know, have, just so I've got the memories of working with those great guys that I met there in the store during that time. And it's a shame that, you know, we couldn't keep in contact because there was no social media, there was no internet really. Back in those days, and I don't even remember the names of half of those people now. Maybe just their first names only, but who knows, they could be watching this video. It's quite possible. Alright guys, I think we're at 54 minutes. Let's call it a night, okay? So we did make some progress on this, even though it's even minimal, but I'm going to you know, tidy up the pants before the next video and make sure it's all finished and done. Then next time we're going to do the troll, okay? Get back to the troll. Now on that chainmail on the ogre, I should point out I need to do some washes and all that kind of thing, so it's not actually finished yet. Okay, so I've just done the sort of highlighting. It needs a bit of a wash and then a further highlight, so we're sort of just building up the stages there, but that's sort of just the process of how I would do the chainmail there. But here's our troll. So next video we're going to do that, so I just did all like the heavy dark green with a bit of black in there as well, and mixed in there as well, just to make it even a bit darker. So we've got a nice contrast there between the light skin and the dark skin. I've got to line in all the hair as well, which would be like a dark blue. But I just want to check my army book just to make sure the colours are going to match up. But yeah, I look forward to doing that the next paint session, whether it's going to be tomorrow, possibly even if it's like just 20-30 minutes or something, or the following day. Alright guys, so take it easy, take care, hope you're happy painting there. So I'm always, you know, find it very encouraging when people say, you know, I'm enjoying watching videos and I'm painting along. That's great, that's awesome, that's what I want you to do. Don't just sit there and watch me doing this stuff. Even that might be helpful too, but it might be very painful and boring for you. But yeah, get out your paints and brushes and minis and all that kind of thing, and just paint along. Alright dudes, let's call it a night, so I'll see you in the next one, yeah? Okay, bye-bye.